right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We have a Lead Time Optimization 101 webinar special for you, featuring Mike O'Connell, founder of Happy Guest, and Professor Ben Coleman, founder and CEO of RevAndResearch. So thanks, everyone, for joining. You can see some people in the chat already. Ronaldo, hello. Thanks for coming. Gonna write a quick message here in case anyone can't see us. And let's kick it off. Right, so a little bit of housekeeping. Oh, did we lose Ben?
Nope, I'm here. Sorry about that, guys. Just had a little technical difficulty.
No worries. Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping. So we cannot hear you, we cannot see you. So if you're in your pajamas, no problem at all. We can see the chat. So if you have any questions, any comments, you can post them into the chat. There's also a Q&A section. So if you have specific questions that you want us to review at the end of the webinar, add them to the Q&A and we'll get to those. If you can't hear us, please unmute your speaker. I also mentioned this in the chat. There should be a blue button where you can unmute or just turn up your volume. And the webinar will be recorded. We'll share it via email. Is Ben just coming on and off?
I don't know if it's Wi-Fi or if it's user error.
Professor Ben.
Professor Ben's here. I keep getting kicked out. Stop touching things. Hey, hands are up here now.
All right, let's see how long you last this time. Sorry, as I was saying, the webinar is being recorded. We'll add it to our YouTube so you can share it or rewatch it, and we'll share it with you via email as well in a couple days. And unfortunately, this will not be translated, so it's only in English. We do get that question sometimes. All right, let's see. So quick agenda. We'll just introduce ourselves quickly so you know who we are, what we do. Introduce the concept of lead time, tell you why you should care about it. We'll go over some data and market trends that we've seen here at Lodgify, and we'll show you a case study. Ashley, a Lodgify user, looking at her rentals. Professor Ben will go and analyze that, and then tell us some best practices. And then we will go on to the Q&A session. All right, so first off, meet our speakers. Mike O'Connell, founder of Happy Guest. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mike. I'm the founder of Happy Guest. I think Marissa covered most of my story there. I've been in the industry for a number of years. Excited to be here, and I think we'll get cranking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mike has the best headshot in the whole industry. He's pretty infamous for that. So here we have it. And Professor Ben Coleman, founder and CEO, RevAndResearch.
Yeah. Hey, Marissa, thanks so much for having me. First of all, I have been in the industry going on 15 years. Started off as a small operator down on this little island in Mexico where we quickly scaled. I exited that business and got into the revenue management and consulting side of our industry. Really grew our business down in Mexico based off some of the principles that we're going to talk about today. So if you're a property manager where you're looking for owner acquisition, this is going to be a great way for you to have more confidence when you speak to them. But yeah, Marissa, really looking forward to getting into this. This has kind of been my passion for the last few years of dissecting what is lead time, why it matters, and why we should look at it this way.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you both for joining. And Ben, what are you a professor of?
Professor of Revenue Management.
Nice. All right. I was hoping you'd say that. All right. And just quickly, I am Marissa Rivera. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Lodgify. So I manage our partner relations with the OTAs, Booking.com, Airbnb, Vrbo, as well as our partners on the marketplace, like Happy Guest, for example. So let's get started. Lead time optimization 101. So first off, what is lead time? Lead time, or booking window, as you'll sometimes see it in this presentation, is the difference in days from when a guest makes a booking to when they're checking in. So if we have the example here, a guest booked on June 1st and the check-in day is June 15th, then you have a lead time of 14 days. And to find your average lead time, you're going to add up the lead time days from all of your reservations and then divide it by the total reservations. So this will give you a key metric to kind of base your pricing and other strategies off of. And why is this important? So it's a good metric to look at to really understand the demand for your rental so that it can help you price adequately. Instead of having just one flat rate throughout the whole year, you can really look at this average lead time and see when maybe you should be pricing higher or pricing lower. It also will help you kind of analyze market trends. So if you see that your lead time is getting longer or getting shorter, it might be an indicator that people aren't traveling as much, or they're having other difficulties with booking. And so why should you optimize lead time? Understanding this is really going to help you maximize your revenue. So the key, as with everything, is finding balance, right? So having earlier bookings, longer lead times is going to help you to have that predictable income. It's going to be easier for you to plan around. So if you have cleaning or maintenance work, you already have those dates booked out in your calendar. And it also leads to higher ADR. And then the last minute bookings help to kind of fill those gap nights, boost occupancy, and make sure that you're really getting the most out of your rental. And we have a quote here from Allison Bailey, and they use their historical lead time to kind of stay ahead of the competition, to see where they should be adding promos, and changing their length of stay or adding discounts. And there are several factors that can affect lead time, right? So the first off is traveler preference. So you have some people that are planners like me. This year I booked a summer vacation trip with my two best friends from high school. We're going to Greece, and it's for the end of July, and I booked everything like February, March. I'm a planner. I was the one that did the homework in high school. They copied off of me. They did nothing. And then you have other people like my boyfriend, for example, or Mike, who just surprised me with a birthday trip at the end of July as well. And he booked it yesterday. So, a lot shorter lead time on that. It's also going to depend on your rental, right? So if you have maybe a studio apartment in San Francisco, you might have shorter lead times. You're going to be attracting maybe solo business travelers. There's public transportation, right? So it doesn't require so much organization. Whereas if you have maybe like a 5-bedroom in the Texas Hill Country, you're going to attract groups. There's more planning involved. You probably need to rent a car. So those lead times might be longer. Let's see, seasonality, right? So having periods of high or low demand are also going to affect lead time. Your pricing and promotions. So really making sure that you're pricing accordingly, not just having that one flat rate throughout the whole year. And having early bird discounts. So most of the OTAs have these where you can just apply them automatically to really take advantage of the lead times. And one thing that often gets overlooked, and I think Mike and Ben will touch on a little bit later as well, are your booking policies. Again, the OTAs really play around with these. They have a lot of tools. Some of them have, discounts for non-refundable cancellation. So take a look at these options that you have. But in general, having stricter cancellation policies can discourage earlier bookings. So we do recommend taking a look at those as well. So let's look at some market trends. So this data is all from Lodgify, right? So we're aggregating booking data from our channel managers as well as Lodgify direct bookings, and looking at it over the past 5 years. And this is the US only. And we have here, we can see that for 2025, we see a declining trend at average lead time. So right now we're at a little under 49 days as the average lead time. And this is pretty in line with what we've seen in general, right? Lead time is shrinking because of economic pressures. We have the whole cost of living crisis, maybe the job market is a bit volatile. So all these factors can affect lead time. And if we look over the past 5 years, we can see 2020, COVID, shorter lead times, and it sort of increases. And now we're starting to see a declining trend. And if we look at 2024 last year, so obviously we're still in 2025. It's not a full picture of the full year, but 2024, we do have the full year. And we can see here a breakdown by the days, right? So we have 0 to 7, 8 to 21, 22 to 30. Then we have the larger booking window times, 3160, 6190, 91 plus. So if we look at 0 to 7 days, so within a week, we have 32% of bookings being made a week before check-in date, which is super last minute. And then if we look at adding up all of the bins that are within the month, so 30 days under, we can see that it makes up 57% of the bookings made in 2024. So most bookings are being made really last minute, that last month or even that last week. Then we kind of see a decline in these middle bins, and then plus 91 days also jumps up to about 20%. So these would be people like me that are planners, plan well in advance, and then most people are these just-in-time, last-minute type of bookers. And we look year over year at lead time bins, so we can kind of see the trends, right? So 2025, we're starting to see the return of the last minute booking, whereas in previous years, there were longer lead times. It's now decreasing again. So if we add up here 0 to 21 days, which is 53%, and then this bin here is 22 to 30 days, which is 7%, we can see that around 60% of bookings are being made within a month of check-in. That's a really big amount of bookings being made last minute within a month. And then we have some tips. So if you want to encourage early bookings, we recommend that you offer some early bird discounts. Again, if you go into Airbnb, you can apply this. You can put, for example, 10% off of 60 plus days out. You can use dynamic pricing tools that can help you do this automatically. So it's backed by, data-driven research, and it'll automatically change your prices depending on demand and where your accommodation is, and even searches, guest searches. You can remind repeat guests to book, right? So if you have a CRM system that you use, you can see that maybe your average lead time is 30 days. So 30 days out, you can send out a message to all of your past guests to try to encourage repeat bookings 30 days out, and see if you can get any direct bookings from that. We also recommend optimizing your listings early and frequently. If you have a dynamic pricing tool, it's done automatically. If you don't, then you kind of need to go in there and play around with it yourself. And then you can also benefit from last minute bookings, right? So you don't want to have all of your bookings done super early. You want to have find that balance and have a mix. And again, for last minute bookings, pricing tools are a great way to just automate this. It's not so much set it and forget it. You do kind of have to keep up with things, but it's a great way to automate it. You can drop minimum stays to try to fill gap nights, right? So when I talk to Airbnb, they say one of the biggest killers is a 3-night minimum stay, right? Because you're automatically getting rid of people that just want, maybe a quick weekend trip. They're not going to be able to book your rental. So playing around with these minimum night stays, seeing where you have a gap, maybe playing around with that nightly rate as well will help you get these last minute bookings to increase your occupancy. And if you want some recommendations on pricing tools, if you're a Lodgify user, you have 3 options. So we have Lodgify dynamic pricing. We also have an integration with Price Labs and Beyond Pricing. This will automatically sync up with your rates in Lodgify. So Price Labs or Beyond or Lodgify dynamic pricing is looking at the market data, is looking at rentals like yours, seeing what's being booked out at what prices, and telling you what price you should list your rental at. And if you're still not sure, Mike has an exciting webinar coming up with some dynamic pricing big shots. You want to explain a bit about this, Mike?
Yeah. So at the end of the month, we are having a full-fledged revenue management conference. It's virtual, so you don't have to fly or drive anywhere. So we have kind of some of the biggest hitters in the industry. Kind of what we wanted to do was, bridge the gap between, the enterprise managers and, some of the independent hosts. Because the reality is, in every market, you're probably going up against, revenue managers that are working full time. Some of these large operators have 3 or 4 full time employees, and their full time jobs are setting rates and looking at revenue. And the honest truth is, you're never going to beat them, but you can actually deploy some of the same strategies they're using to kind of beat the other people out there that, maybe have a pricing tool or they have, smart pricing on. So there's the big confusion, and Ben can kind of talk to this too. So we have dynamic pricing tools, which are amazing. All of these revenue managers use them. But then beyond that, there's strategies that revenue managers are implementing. And we're going to kind of go over one today, but I'll dump the link for this in the chat so people can sign up. It's free. It's recorded too. And then at the end, I don't think this is, in fact, it's never been done before. We have the 3 CEOs of all the major pricing tools. We're going to have a presidential style debate on stage and let the audience kind of ask questions and compare the products, because a lot of the times you might not see the full picture when you're exploring these tools. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. And we have a friend of mine as a former CBS Fox News anchor who's going to moderate it. So it's going to be interesting. So I would recommend coming. You can register. I just dropped the link here. And again, it's totally free.
Nice. That sounds super exciting. How did you pull this off? How did you get these 3 to agree to this?
I don't know. Works my magic. And then we have
relationships.
Yeah. Jamie Lane from AirDNA, who's their chief economist, is going to come on and kind of give a state of the industry. We have representatives from the CEO of Vacasa and Casago, which is the largest manager in the world now, I'm pretty sure. And then a lot of folks that have exited their businesses, CEOs, founders, and then revenue managers. Kind of made that Coachella style. So it'll be fun. And
Nice.
If you can't make every session, we're going to record every session besides the debate. Got to come watch that live. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, I see a question in the chat. How is dynamic pricing and Lodgify different than what Price Labs does, from Angel? And yeah, this is, a great question. What's the difference between Price Labs, Beyond, Wheelhouse? Simple answer is kind of the algorithm behind each tool. And you just kind of have to figure out which one works best for you by looking at trial and error, seeing the rates that they recommend you. Most of these tools have like a free trial, or you can activate it to see what the rates are. So you can take a look, see if it makes sense, if it aligns with your expectations. And then going from there, you can just kind of see which tool has the customizations that you want and figure out which is the best for you. Again, it's your rental best. So this is all, based off of market data, seeing what the rentals around you are booking at. They take events into account. So if there's a music festival, but maybe if you have a really local event, it might not be picked up by one tool and it might be picked up by the other, just because they have more data in your geographic location. So it's kind of just playing around and seeing which tool fits your rental best.
Yeah. And I think at this point too, in this world of dynamic pricing, it's almost like buying a car. We have an Audi, we have a Mercedes, and we have a BMW. All very similar in performance, but you got to kind of figure out which one works best for you. And I hope that this debate kind of answers some questions around that. So, yeah.
Nice. I'll be attending for sure.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, let's get into Ashley's story. Professor Ben, do you want to take it away?
For sure, I can. Yeah. So what we did is we grabbed Ashley's booking summary report. Is that what y'all call it in Lodgify, Marissa? Is it a booking summary report?
Yeah, booking report, or yes,
A booking
something
report.
along those lines.
And so what we did is we took from the year 2024, since that's complete, we took that and we did a 90-day analysis for June, July, and August. That really highlighted the lead times or the booking window. You can see here that over the next 90 days, our average lead time is actually around 19 days. This means that the majority of our bookings are happening inside the month. I believe that one of the reasons this happens and one of the reasons that we do have so many bookings happening inside the month is we have an issue with far out pricing in our industry. I've talked to everybody that does revenue management in the industry, that everybody has a different philosophy. I've also talked to all the CEOs of the pricing tools about how are we missing the ball in far out pricing. And it really has been one of the tougher eggs to crack in our industry, I think, because, we run this risk of, if we do take a booking 3 months out, could we have gotten more? How do we know that that was the right booking to take?
What do you consider far out pricing?
I consider far out pricing outside of 90 days.
Okay.
Outside of 90 days, especially with, if you look at global lead time across the country, Marissa, what you had in there for 2025 is looking like about 48 days. The one thing to note about that is the year's not over yet. So that number 48 for lead days is only going to go down. So we're only having 2025 compress on top of us. And so I think that also looking at your data, that we do take bookings outside of 90 days. It's in this 30 to 90 day window where we struggle and where we really want to audit and what we really want to focus on in this webinar.
Nice. And so in that 30 to 90 day window, are you saying that people generally have their prices too high? Is this the roadblock?
The roadblock is pricing being too high. Some of that can be on the operator themselves, of where they have an ADR based strategy where they're really trying to drive the margin in the business through an average daily rate. We also have clients at RevAndResearch where ADR doesn't matter because they're making so much money after the booking through upsells, early check-ins, late checkouts. So it really depends on your strategy there. But I think that pricing definitely further out is too high.
Okay.
If you look at a model like Price Labs, Wheelhouse, or Beyond, they're really trying to predict demand that hasn't surfaced yet. And so that's why we always recommend leaning on your historicals, leaning on what did you book it for last year and when. I think this is a great slide here of why lead times are shrinking. I think the main reason is we're looking at an increase in inventory. And Marissa, going back to what you said, where we will hold pricing too high for too long. What happens then, Marissa, when you can't book something, you got to discount it, right? Mm-hmm. Your pricing model, after it hits the lead time, after it hits a certain lead time, or after it hits a certain booking window, is going to naturally decrease it as well. So what have we done? We've got pricing kind of too high and with excess inventory. And so simple economics says that pricing has to go down. And so what we're a big fan of is what I call 365 days of realistic bookable rates that then will drive you to that goal. If you're an independent operator, an independent host, and you only like to have the calendar open for a 90, 120 days, that's fine. But we want to make sure that those 90, 120 days of pricing are geared up and that really kind of fall in line with our historicals and where the market is. One of the other things that we see of why lead times are shrinking is because hosts are requiring a longer length of stay further out. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that's looking for a 7-night stay is going to stay 7 nights. What we see is that when we drop that length of stay requirement, we get so much more visibility on the OTAs. More visibility on the OTAs equals more bookings, and more bookings further out.
For sure. Yeah, I can't stress that enough. As all my conversations with the OTAs, they really look at the length of stay, and it's number one killer for not getting search rankings for your listing and missing out on bookings because you just have a length of stay that's too long.
So what now? I want to talk about what happens. So we were talking about that 90-day analysis has a 19-day booking window or a 19-day booking window. What happens when we miss that window? What happens if we get down to 13 days, to 10 days, to 7 days? We've got to understand that our home is losing value after this booking window. Once again, if you just look at simple economics, inventory is doing this and demand is doing that. We've got stagnant demand, increasing of inventory. So naturally, pricing is going to decrease anyway. And we're using this lead time to go, we need to be booked by this day. And so at RevAndResearch, we really try our best to strive for that 19-day booking window to kind of be the arrival date for those reservations. Meaning we want to be booked. We want to run discounting coming into that window because I know if I don't secure a booking further out, that my pricing is going to go down. Leveraging this average lead time, it also allows us to hold pricing. If you're confident and we're sitting there, the 19 days terrifies me. It terrifies me as an old operator as well, like to have that kind of unpredictable income coming in. But we also, if you can get your lead times out to 30 to 45 days, the national average being, I think, 46, you can sit there 70 days out going, you know what, my pricing may be a little high, but I'm also not necessarily missing out on a lot yet because we're not supposed to be booking. So we can actually hold that pricing there. And the other thing that we want to do, and we're going to talk about this in best practices, is using our average lead time, our average booking window at the unit level or at the listing level to set our last minute discount strategies.
Nice. Makes sense. Yeah. So, not letting the anxiety get to you and putting your prices down or start, going crazy with promotions before it's time.
Best practices, like we talked about, let's audit our far out pricing. Is your current pricing for 45 days out, 90 days out, is it higher? Is it lower than what your previous year's ADR was? Because if you think about historical data, we're really getting some of the traveler psychology into those numbers. Because for some reason, they decided to book X number of days out last year. And then, you know what? It's not just one reservation a month. We're having multiple, 3, 5, 6 reservations a month. When did people and why did they look that way? So if you think about it, Marissa, if we're at 60 days out for a 45-day lead time, wouldn't we want that pricing to be pretty similar to where we booked last year?
Yeah, would make sense.
Especially with what we talked about, economic pressures, inventory increase, we need to be auditing this pricing further out. And I think, once again, that is the biggest roadblock to far out bookings. I think that it's a hard argument for me to buy into that, like we said in your booking data, Marissa, that, hey, there are bookings that take place after 90 days. There are bookings that take place inside 30 days. What about that gap in there? I think the biggest roadblock is far out pricing, not necessarily a decrease in demand. Auditing your last minute discount strategy. If you noticed in those graphs, I should have pointed it out. There were a couple units that booked out over 30 days out. And then we had 3 or 4 units that were booking inside 7 days. Wouldn't those dictate different strategies just because of how much more time you have for a few of them than you do the others? A good rule of thumb that I like to use, and this is for Lodgify pricing, this is for Beyond, this is for Price Labs, is take that average lead time, add 2 weeks to it. So if it's what we were looking at, 16, 14, so at 30 days, start your last minute discount strategy there. I know some people would say that's too much, but hey, with the economic conditions that we're in, with increasing inventory, what's the problem with discounting 5% 30 days out? What's the where is your exposure to have a 10% discount 21 days out? And what we want to do is, as we're entering that booking window, we want to be doing everything that we can to entice bookings then, because we know if we get to the other side of that mountain, hey, it's just a snowball of discounting, what we call a race to the bottom. That kind of covers too what I'm talking about there, discounting before the booking window. We want to be ready for that, but we also want to be primed and ready. We want to have our rates close to where they were last year, close to where we're seeing current bookings. And we want to go ahead and be there right before the window just so that we stay ahead of competition. If you want to talk about leaving money on the table, which is something that we hear a lot, is, hey, Ben, we took this booking too early. Well, did you? Because in 7 days, according to last year's data, we didn't really take any more bookings. And so we start running it that way. The other way that you can really leverage your average lead times is by changing your length of stay before the booking window. What I used to do when I was an operator was we would have calendar invites and we would have meetings around these booking window days to go, hey, do we want to change our length of stay? This unit's underperforming. We've got 3 weeks open. We've got a 7-day minimum. So what's happening there? Any OTA search that doesn't have a 7-day minimum or more, you're not showing up. I remember in 2022, I think that was kind of when COVID we started having that pretty hard landing in our industry. A lot of the traditional vacation rental markets, the Panhandle of Florida, Gulf Shores, Lower Alabama, Tennessee, were very strict in the summer on 7 to 7. Hey, it's a Saturday check-in, it's a Saturday check-out. What we did, and the data shocks me, was we came up with this idea of, why don't we do 3-night minimums? Everybody kind of thought we were crazy because nobody wanted to have 3-night lengths of stay in the summer because you're going to have gaps. Well, what we found was the length of stay only dropped to about 5.7. So just because you change your length of stay to 2 or 3 days doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be booking 2 or 3 night stays. You could be travelers like me and Mike that may not necessarily pay attention to how many days we're booking at that time. We're just taking a look, trying to figure out where's a nice place for us to go hang out with our buds. And so I think using that booking window just to set calendar invites for yourself, put a little 15, 20-minute invite. If your booking window is 30 days, it's 45 days out. Going, hey, I really need to take a look at my pricing and length of stay. One more little tidbit I didn't put in here was also, we used to set calendar invites in meetings around our listing optimization. So we would say, I remember our booking window was about 75 days for our high season. So day 100, day 125 away from then, we were having all hands on deck meetings, optimizing our listings for high season. And so I think those are really the 4 to 5 best ways to really leverage your average lead time.
So, I mean, your whole operations were even based on the average lead time. That's super interesting. And when you're doing these audits, Ben, for far out pricing or last minute discounts, is there a formula to figure out how much of a discount should I put for, 30 days out?
That's a great question, Marissa. And I think it comes down, just to plug Revenue Rehab again, that we're going to have that great rate debate with the CEOs, is come listen to that. Ask those questions to them, because personally, the way that we look at dynamic pricing tools are part of our team. So Wheelhouse and Price Labs Beyond, they all are predicting these prices. And then what I like to look at is, hey, here's my data-driven price from a pricing tool with no setting changes. I want to know what that price is. I want to know the unadulterated, the pure price that Price Labs Wheelhouse that Beyond is giving me. Then I want to see what did my customizations do to that price. So you're seeing the pure price there because the goal of these pricing tools really is to compete with the market. It's market-based, data-driven pricing. And so we've reached critical mass in our industry, I believe, with data-driven, with dynamic pricing. And so having the human element of going, okay, where do I want to position myself in the market? You know what? My 6-bedroom house my 6-bedroom with a pool, a hot tub overlooking the beach. I may want to position myself at the top end of the market. So I may not want to run a discount there, but I definitely don't want my pricing to be too inflated. So Marissa, that's when, just to sum up that question real quick, number one, look at your historicals. Look at what you booked at and when. I think number two, then deciding on your inventory, where do you want to compete in the market? If you want to compete mainstream in the market and revenue management is not the focus of your business, these simple little tips of just looking at booking windows, and Marissa, I'm talking 5 to 10% discounts.
Okay.
I'm not talking a 30% discount 60 days out. I'm talking about let's get it down just a little bit, trying to just clip the market a little bit early.
Makes sense. And, you know, we keep going back to dynamic pricing and, you know, 2025, everything is super data driven, AI driven. Is it even possible to not use dynamic pricing anymore at this point? I mean, is it worth it to spend hours and hours looking yourself at your booking history?
Marissa, oh shit, that's a great question because I'm racking my brain right now, and all I can see are just nightmare meetings in my head of us all getting together, 4, 5, 6 of us, and breaking things down by the month to start setting prices. That was a 3 to 4 meeting, a month-long process. And then we would start drilling down into the weeks of those months, which made it an even longer process with no feedback. The great thing about having a dynamic pricing tool in your tool belt is you've got feedback. You've got something going, hey, that's too low. Hey, that's too high. Hey, this is what we're recommending. And I would say we take revenue management recommendations from dynamic pricing tools. I don't want to say with a grain of salt, but we take them feedback driven. We want to know what are these tools that are analyzing hundreds of thousands of data points telling us? And then what you get to do is put your human touch, your human experience, your expertise on top of a dynamic pricing tool. So to answer your question, Marissa, I think that it would be very tough, if not impossible, to compete without a pricing tool. The biggest things that we see where you see the most amount of growth in year one is your shoulder seasons. Is really being able to hone in that shoulder season pricing and drive occupancy.
Interesting. And we have a nice question here from Aaron in the chat. Maybe Professor Ben put you on the spot. Let's see if you have an answer. Can you give us an example of how we would discount if my home booked for $200 last year, what that looks like, and how we would discount 30, 15, 7 days out?
100%. Aaron, fantastic question.
100% discount?
100% discount. No. Aaron, since we're talking about like a 30-day discount, and you put 30, 15, and 7, I'm going to assume that your lead time is a little bit more than 30 days. And so the first thing I would do is let's look at what that lead time is.
Aaron, write what your lead time typically is if you know it in the chat. So we can
if you could drop it in there, that would be great.
Well, we can work off an assumption.
Yeah. So, Aaron, what I would look at doing is at the 30-day mark, setting up a last-minute discount strategy if you're using a pricing tool. Oh, she doesn't know. So Aaron, that's the first thing we want to do is decide where our lead time is. Normally what we do is stair step these down. So at 30 days out, I want to have something discounting a recommended rate at about 5%. What that does, Aaron, is if you think about it, is we're trying to price against the market. We're looking at competitive pricing around the market. I know inside 30 days, I'm just trying to put food on my table. So a simple 5% discount. And then maybe at day 25, day 21, I'm dropping that to 10. By the time I get to 14, I'm trying to get it about 20% down. And Aaron, I think that's a pretty good blanket statement for any type of unit, bigger or smaller. And what I mean by that is a bigger unit, even though you may not want to discount it that far out, a larger unit, a higher end in the inventory is going to book out further. So we're already at a lot of jeopardy there. But then when you start competing, if it's a smaller units that you're managing or that you're worried about, little studios or one bedrooms, that's where we've seen a majority of the increase in supply. So you're competing with so many more people, you may want to look at a more aggressive discount.
Nice. Makes sense. Thank you, Professor Ben. Let's see. And yeah, going back to the cancellation policy strategies, what do you guys suggest here? How can we use cancellation policies?
I'm going to lead this off and then hand it to Mike, because I think that this is the most important slide of the deck. OTAs have just 100% bought into cancellation policies. I can't tell you the amount of times we have grinded over somebody's portfolio, that we have done every dang thing that we can do, and cancellation policy books up a calendar like that. The great thing about a cancellation policy is it doesn't have to stay that way the whole time. You could use it until you start seeing pickup. But what Mike's going to do is talk about using this cancellation policy, I love it, as a flex. We're going to flex the fact that we're professional operators. We're going to flex the past that we're great communicators. And so, Mike, talk about how Happy Guest is going to help users really drive not only solidifying the booking, but also driving revenue after the fact.
Yeah, and you don't even need Happy Guest to kind of implement this, right? This is a strategy that we've kind of developed over time as we've seen the OTAs get, heavy on the cancellation side. I think what's kind of happening in the hotel arena is, with the Hilton Marriott, anyone with the honors program can book a hotel room, and I believe it's like 48 hours, 24 hours before you can cancel. So what we're seeing is a trend in folks that, are targeting a trip. So say they're going to wherever, going to Barcelona or Sevilla to see Marissa. They might book, 4 or 5 different accommodations, right? Yeah. And then make that decision closer to that cancellation time, to pick the place that they're in, right? So what we tried doing, and what a lot of larger operators are doing, is really doubling down on guest communication and almost treating your business as if it's a concierge, right? So one thing that we like to do, and I'm an operator myself, is when we get a booking that comes through, we have a pretty loose cancellation policy, right? So when a booking comes through, right away, and there's a lot of folks that'll tell you to do this, we're making a phone call, right? And that phone call is, hey, Mr. Guest, I'm Mike from wherever, and, are you coming to celebrate anything special? Or some sort of open-ended question, to engage with that guest. Because there's a chance, if you have a loose cancellation policy, or high probability, that they've booked a couple other places, right? And people are also kind of playing the system too, to see if demand goes down, if rates are going down, they're going to cancel you and then, go look at another place. But if I call them up and I say, hey, you coming into town for anything special? And we get into conversation, they might say they're coming for, a birthday, a bachelorette, or they really want to go, explore a local attraction in town. That's when you can take the opportunity to, you don't have to necessarily upsell them something, but act as a concierge. Oh yeah, we have a relationship with that restaurant. Oh yeah, we, have the ability we have a discount code for tours at the local art museum, that kind of conversation. The other thing you can play into that as well is, hey, we offer early check-in and late check-out. If you're in a fly-in market, and they've already booked their flights, and they get in at, 10 or 11 a.m., that might be the difference to save a booking. Right. So after I hang up that phone call, or my team does, knowing that, the guest either booked a reservation, they really want a late checkout, they want to do a tour and experience, I know I'm pretty much locked in on that, booking, and I'm not going to sweat looking at, okay, they have 1 day left to cancel, because then all of a sudden you're starting back from square one. So not even using happy guess aside, I would, start that practice, right? If we want to be successful, we got to know that the larger operators have concierge teams, and they're making these calls and they're trying to upsell, because the fact of the matter is these larger operators, they're taking their commission. The upsell revenue, that's all theirs. So if they're selling, tours, they're selling experiences, private chefs coming to the home. And why do you think Airbnb just launched what they did? Right? Because there's money in that. And, they're kind of taking all of that. So you can get really creative. It's your property. It's ultimately, your guest, no matter where that, booking came from. And if there's something you can offer them, it doesn't even need to be an upsell. If it's like a small decoration, or if it's like, accommodating anything they might ask. Like, I know people that like operations that don't even have these upsells, and someone's like, oh, I'm coming into town, to celebrate, whatever. My aunt's just got an award for such and such. I don't know. And they'll come up with something. Like, I know people that have never done, bachelorette party decorations. We have an operator in Arizona that link their guests up with these pool boys that'll come. Now they offer that. Like, you name it, people are doing it. Dog walking is another big one.
I mean, even just creating that relationship with the guest, right? So, you're becoming memorable to them, even if you don't have an upsell that's particularly interesting. You're reaching out, you're showing them that you'll go above and beyond. They're gonna probably stick with your booking.
Yeah, Marissa, I think that's a great point, because I think that we can get in here with technologies like Happy Guest, Beyond, Price Labs, Wheelhouse, Lodgify. We can get into automation, and we can get into all these really cool like workflow things that I think are fascinating. At the end of the day, we're in hospitality.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, be an AI robot that's going to be able to call and have a human connection made. And I think that as much as what Mike was saying is using technology or not, just the making the phone call is going to set you up so much more than your competition that they may have booked with as well.
Yeah. And I could build the best technology out there, but if dad books and tells mom, hey, we're going to Rhode Island in 3 months, what she's going to do is make all those accommodations, and you're going to miss all of that potential revenue because he's not clicking the app right away. One thing that you can implement too with Happy Guest is the minute they're getting a booking, they're getting their reservation page made, and you can have a personalized video in there. So like a nice option, if you don't want to go down the path of calling, is to have a personalized, hi, I'm Mike, welcome, thanks for booking and staying with me. So that way they put a face, to the accommodation itself, and they know they're not staying at some corporate owned operation, which goes a long way. So that connection with the guest is super important, and if you can get that as soon as possible, it's going to ultimately maybe save that booking.
Nice. So you're using the cancellation policy to sort of bait the fish, secure the booking, and then capitalizing on your hospitality experience to really catch that fish and make sure that the guest ends up canceling all their other reservations and staying with you.
Yeah. Simple, right?
I think that when you get down to it, this is the most important slide of the webinar. We can get in and talking about bookings, and we can talk about booking data all that we want. We know that if we put a little bit of time into our revenue management, it can only get better, but that we don't want that work going out the back door of the business. And I think that this right here closes the back door of the business. What Mike said, getting check-in instructions or getting a reservation page, a welcome video made right away. We're just talking about things that are driving and solidifying bookings. And then also, what do you do, Marissa, when ADRs are going to have to drop this year because of increase in supply? How do you make that money back?
Yeah,
got to do it after the
stand out. Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, maybe we should open up to Q&A.
My favorite part.
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, I saw a question earlier about how can we get the lead times in Lodgify? So I figured this question would come up. Um, so I have a little video here. So yeah, in Lodgify, we have what's called a booking report. So you can go into your reservation section and then you can filter for the date range, the check-in, check-out, or booking source. And then you can download the booking report. And this will download as a CSV file with a bunch of data here.
Yeah. Hey,
And so
Marissa,
then,
one little quick tip, real quick, that when I was cleaning the data, the way the creation date reports, which is pretty cool, it's not only June 3rd, it would be 10:52 a.m. If you just highlight that column and go from a custom field in Excel or in Google Sheets to short date, it'll get rid of all that. It'll get rid of the time, and it makes it a lot easier to mess with the data.
nice. Yeah, I have a video on that too because I figured it would be difficult for people. But yeah, exactly. So we're looking at the arrival date and the creation date. And in our booking report, the creation date has a timestamp on it. So it's a date and time, which makes it difficult to kind of look at that data. So what I've done here is a different strategy. I just split text into columns here. So highlight the column, go to split text to columns, and this allows me to get the timestamp out of there. So now I can just automatically subtract my arrival date from my created date. And then here the data came up as a time. So I'm just putting it back into a number format, and I can see 19 days is the lead time for this booking. And then from here, I can get my average. So I have an average of 44.67 lead time. These are all fake bookings from my test account, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, just a quick tip here on how you can get that from Lodgify to figure out what your lead time is and then implement some of the strategies that Ben has told us about and Mike. Nice. Are there any other questions? I don't see any in the chat.
Don't be shy. Ask some questions. We're here.
We got Professor Ben and Founder Mike.
And Founder Mike.
Come on.
Yeah.
Someone's got to ask a question.
Well, while people are figuring out what their questions are, Mike, you didn't really tell us too much about Happy Guest. What other things can you do with Happy Guest?
Yeah, so Happy Guest is a guest management system. And what we tried to do was kind of bring the enterprise level, guest experience, guest management system to, the smaller operator. So basically what Happy Guest can do is automate rental agreements. There's ID collection, anything that you have, municipal regulations, things like that, would be flown in there. And then you can also process upsells. We have automated early check-in, which is huge. So, when your unit's marked guest ready, if you're using Lodgify or any sort of other tool to schedule your ground team, when that unit is marked guest ready, the guest is going to be able to purchase an early check-in. The other thing to keep in mind too, we also have guidebooks. So yeah, come check it out. I have a hard time describing my own product. It's and I hate saying the word all in one. But basically the process is guest books, they're getting a link. We're integrated with Lodgify. They're getting a link. They click on that link and everything that they need to do post or pre-booking is going to be in there. So they're going to sign their rental agreement. If you're, require IDs, a lot of, towns regulate that. So ID collection, selfie holding their ID. They agree to house rules. Then you can also process a security hold or have them purchase damage protection if that guest doesn't want to do the hold, all sorts of things. So if you want to check that out, you can book a demo with our team. We don't have self-onboarding. We'll kind of guide you through everything and we'll actually build out all of your listings. What I find is it's intimidating if we give you a blank slate. So if you hop on a call with us, We'll integrate your Lodgify, and then from there, we'll build your listings out. And then a few days later, 5 business days later, you'll be up and running and live, and we'll help you with your messaging. And now all the questions are full and
Now they're flying in. Yeah.
when a guest book, we are charged through Stripe. Will there
no,
be
hey, Mike, before there, let's
Hold
hit
on.
Angel's question.
Yeah.
We got Angel's questions first.
Let's
Any
see.
tips for those that are new and don't have any history to reference? I think that's a great question. Then you've really got to lean into market data. You've got AirDNA out there. Marissa, do you have market data inside the Lodgify pricing tool?
I don't think we have any market data that's visible. It's baked into the price, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But no,
Yes.
we'll be coming out with some updates on Lodgify dynamic pricing, and that will be something that we eventually roll out. But at the moment, it's just baked into the rate rec.
So yeah, Angel, so basically, if you're using the Lodgify dynamic pricing tool, you really are already getting that market data inside your pricing. What I would do is look for some external data sources. AirDNA is a great one that you can really drive deep down into, because what you're going to want to do is get granular with that market data. You're going to want to look at, because Angel, I'm sure you're a high performer in your market. So you want to look at only high performers. Those are who you're competing with. You want to look at what bedroom count, and you want to go from there. The other answer I have to that is lean on your pricing tool. Lean on it. It's there. It's got, like Marissa said, it's got market data baked into it. Lean on it for feedback. When pricing is too low, ask those questions of why.
Yeah.
Take a look at some of your competitors. See if they're open for those days, because you could be running into just a week this year that's soft. Like we're running into this week actually right now. And in Gatlinburg especially is normally the first week of summer. It's so soft this year. So soft this year. But you know what? Next week is hot. And so that's what you want to be able to do, is look at competitors that you can pull up on the OTAs versus then looking at using your dynamic pricing tool as a partner with you.
Yeah, and Angel, if you're using Lodgify dynamic pricing, so what we're doing is we're looking at rentals in your area, and we're looking at what they're listing or what their ADR is, and if they're booked out on Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, and taking all that information into account to figure out what rate we should recommend to you for your specific rental on that specific date. And it also takes into account, the seasons and events. So it's all kind of baked into that rate recommendation. But then you have sort of other tools like Price Labs or Beyond that offer market trend data where you can kind of see that holistically and have a visual of that as well. Let's see. We have another question here from...
Golly, we got a bunch of questions now.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. Okay, let's get a move on. When guests book and we are charged through Stripe, will there be a credit card fee that is deducted? I have been concerned with having a more relaxed cancellation policy because of credit card fees. I'm not 100% sure of what the credit card fee is with Stripe through Lodgify. I know we're coming out with Lodgify payments, which is going to have a more competitive fee. So maybe that's something that you can look into to kind of reduce the fee that you're paying for credit cards. Ben, I don't know if you have any insights here on how that relates to the relaxed cancellation policy.
We're talking more to, and I get that's probably for your direct bookings. But on, the OTA side where they're acting as the merchant of record, I wouldn't be concerned with that.
Yeah, well, Vrbo at the moment, is going through Stripe. So our users are the merchant of record as well. So direct bookings and Vrbo, I guess, would be for this.
Yep.
Okay. Jamie has a question. What % of guests actually like upsells, like paying for early check-in or late checkout? My guests ask me for this, but if I charge, they say no thanks.
All right. What percentage? And this is all market driven, and we can kind of dive into this as well. Depending on the market, where you are, if it's a drive-in market, your ADR, there's there's not like the data on it is interesting. Like I have 8 studio units in Fort Lauderdale, and I convert like 30% of those bookings. I have a late check-in or an early or paid late checkout. I'm losing my mind. We're at the hour mark. So it's really market driven, and it's also based off like length of stay, right? If you're taking 2-week, month-long bookings, I would never charge someone for an early check-in or late checkout. But if I'm running, a weekend special and I have 2-3 nights, that's when I'm going to be charging it. One thing that I like to do is, instead of kind of communicating those options through the messenger, just kind of have like within Happy Guest, it'll tell them like what the hourly price is, which they can select which one they want, and then they can just buy it right through there themselves. Rule of thumb, you got to look at your ADR, kind of also look at market data. There's certain portfolios that maybe it's not a good fit. And that's something to consider. But
Yeah,
also look at your guests. No,
yeah,
if you're attracting younger people, they might be more reluctant to pay an extra fee for an early check-in. Whereas if you're attracting families, they'll probably won't be too bothered.
it
and I like
depends
one
too
of
on how you want to actually implement it, because there's two kind of processes. There's the one where someone requests it 2 months out or a month out, and you're scrambling and trying to reorganize to make sure you can accommodate. The other way to handle it is, if they ask, you write back and say, we sometimes accommodate early check-ins, you'll know day of arrival, which takes away all that scrambling back and forth, all that sort of stuff. And if it is available that particular day, great, it's going to be there for them. They can check in. Same goes with late checkout. This is just a trick I've been using forever. My cleaning team thinks that my late checkout, my checkout time's at 11 a.m. It's not. It's at 10. So I always have an hour that I can either upsell, give them a little extra time. So that's pretty nice as well. And then also, my cleaners aren't stepping over, guests as they're leaving. So I can always automatically upsell an hour. And then kind of the rule of thumb that I use is upsell the hour all the time. If they ask for more time, and the next night's open, then I allow them to purchase another night. If it's a same day booking or same day turn, then they got to kick rocks.
Nice. Okay. And there's a follow-up question here on what should the price be for an early check-in. For example, I have a large 4-bedroom place on a lake. How do you figure out that price?
Depends where the lake is. If you're going to drive
Lake Tahoe.
Looking at market data, a lot of your competition is going to be, posting, because these are optional fees, which should be in listing descriptions. So anything early check-in, late checkout, you're fine to charge extra, even with Airbnb's new policies, because they're not mandatory fees. So you are, within your right to offer those. But a lot of, your local competition is going to be posting those rates. The problem is you're not gonna know if they convert or not, if they're too high. We can kind of help at Happy Guest, because we do have a lot of market data, because we actually see conversions. So if you wanted to, check it out, we can probably give you a good idea of where you should be, because you don't want to be too expensive, because then you're not going to make any money, and you don't want to be too cheap, right? So just like pricing your rates. I dynamically price a lot of additional stuff. When I say dynamically price, I'm using elasticity charts and seasonality on parking fees, on, early check-in, late checkout, on damage waivers, things like that. Because if I know it's spring break and I got a bunch of college kids coming, I'm going to up my damage protection policy, during that season. So there's a lot of things you can play around with to make more money there.
Yeah, and I'm just going to select a couple of questions because we are over time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We have a question from Jim, Professor Ben, probably for you. Should I ever be concerned that my rates are too low and people will interpret very, very low rates with a low quality property?
No, I wouldn't think so. I think that what you'd be concerned about is maybe more of attracting some guests that you don't want. That's more of the pushback we get on the Rev and Research side of my businesses. Other thing, Jim, to be thinking about, we have reached critical mass at the dynamic pricing side of things. So I think that it's a lot, the competition rates are a lot tighter. So if you've got a dynamic pricing tool and it's going too low and you feel like it's just dropping, it's doing that for a reason. And more likely the rest of the market's doing that. So no, I would not equate the two as, I would not say A plus B equals C.
Okay. Are there any questions here that you guys see you want to
Yeah,
pick up?
I do. I think Aaron asked one about cancellation policies, moderate, flexible.
Yes.
These are tools in your tool belt. These are ways for you to we like to use cancellation policies as another what we call lever or another tool that doesn't require us to lower our rate. So I would say, Aaron, if it's something really underperforming, go to as flexible as possible. But when you see that pickup and you see those bookings come in, then go play around with it and move it to moderate, move it to what you feel more comfortable in. Then if you see bookings decrease, you know that visibility on the OTA is what's really driving your bookings. So you can make decisions based off that.
It's a really good point.
Excellent. Yeah, I think in general, OTAs are always going to want you to have the most flexible cancellation policy possible, and they're going to, push those listings up. So it's finding a balance between what you're comfortable with and how flexible you can be to get that visibility with the OTAs.
Yeah. And if you're seeing a bunch of, 7-day lead times, right? It might be good to try this out because you're going to be in the same boat a few months down the road. Like, you know what I mean? So if you're seeing like, okay, bookings are coming in within 14 days, 7 days, it might be a good practice to turn that on and kind of see what happens. But I would highly recommend getting, those communication practices in play to make sure, well, to the best of your ability. They might not pick up when you call the guest. You got to reel them in. Got to be their friend, right?
Reel them in.
Yeah.
I like to say, to kind of mirror, that of, a local inn or a bed and breakfast, like that same sort of, hospitality is what we try to provide. It doesn't require a bunch of effort. Like if you got even 10 listings, right? How many phone calls are you really making? And if you can't, you can probably find someone, husband, wife, an employee to do that. It's going to go a long way, and it's probably going to make you thousands and thousands more.
We like thousands.
We do, Marissa.
All right. I see some questions in here about Lodgify dynamic pricing and how it works. Lodgify dynamic pricing is going to give you a rate recommendation, and that's going to replace your nightly rate. So any discount that you apply is going to be applied on top of that nightly rate, right? So Lodgify dynamic pricing isn't going to discount your property. It's just going to tell you, hey, there's low demand for this date. Let's change your price, and then you can apply a discount on top of that as well. Whether Lodgify dynamic pricing is better for you than Price Labs or one of the other dynamic pricing tools, that's something that you're going to have to figure out. It's really going to depend on your rental and your needs, the customizations you want. If you're just getting started, you don't really know how to work these tools, Lodgify dynamic pricing is great. If you want to have those, more customizations, market insights, then maybe a tool like Price Labs is going to be better for you. It also depends where your property is located, right? So some of these tools have more data in the US versus Europe. So that's going to be a factor as well. And then I see a couple questions just regarding, Airbnb APIs. Please reach out to our support team if you have, need any help with these things. And if you have any feedback, you can always leave the feedback on our portal. It'll go directly to our product team. They'll receive it automatically. I see some notes in here about Stripe and credit cards. So make sure you're leaving that feedback for us so that our team is aware that these are things that are friction points for you and we can work on it. And yeah, Mike has shared some links here in the chat. If anyone wants to book a demo with Happy Guest, you have the link right there. And any final words of wisdom, Professor Ben?
No, I think we had a great webinar here. We covered a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Ben Coleman, Ben at RevAndResearch.com. Feel free to shoot me an email if you got any follow-up questions. More than happy to help.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Thanks to everyone who attended the webinar. You'll get the recording soon, and feel free to reach out to us via email if you have any follow-up questions. All right. Well, I guess we'll end it here. Bye, y'all. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.